If you look at the famous King's Chamber, its walls, the ceiling of the King's Chamber are all made with gigantic granite blocks. Those blocks on the King's Chamber weigh 70 tons each. I don't know how they did it.
Have you ever wondered if the pyramids we see in the desert are only the tip of something much bigger and stranger?
I think we're looking at a lost technology, and it was this ancient apocalypse 12,800 years ago that wiped that from the human memory banks. It creates a powerful high-energy zone.
Think about a pharaoh who was so determined that he pulled a glowing green stone across dangerous deserts. He may have also built secret tunnels under the Sphinx. Stay with us as we uncover why Khafre's story continues to make experts uneasy. You'll want to hear every detail. The stone that shouldn't exist. Francis Auguste Mariette was an archaeologist who worked in the winter of 1860. He was digging through the wind-blown ruins of Khafre's Valley Temple at Giza. Over many years, the building had been partially buried by the Nile and moving desert sand. The walls were silent beneath layers of dust. In one of the side rooms that was being cleared, Mariette's team hit something smooth under the sand-packed floor. As the workers slowly cleared away the rubble, a single piece of sculpted stone slowly came to light. It was a whole figure of Pharaoh Khafre sitting down, with his arms resting on his knees, and the falcon-headed god Horus protecting the back of his crown. It had been hidden for thousands of years, as if the desert itself had been watching over it. Mariette was shocked that both the figure and the stone it was made of were still there. Khafre's pyramid complex was mostly made of Giza limestone from the area. During the Old Kingdom, royal figures were usually carved from granite or alabaster that came from quarries closer by. This one wasn't either. In the sun, the figure shone with a deep green-black shine that was broken up by white flashes that looked like frozen lightning. Today, the museum calls it anorthosite gneiss, which is a metamorphic rock that is so tough that even modern steel tools find it hard to cut. Copper-tipped artists from long ago should never have been able to make such straight lines in it. The next thing that was unknown was where the stone came from. Geologists later found that this type of anorthosite gneiss came from a place called Gebel El Asr in the Nubian desert, which is very far to the south and over 600 miles by land from Giza. This is one of the driest and most dangerous places on Earth. A quarry team would have had to cut and load a 4-ton block, drag it over hot sand under a harsh sun, find a way to get it to a seasonal river channel, and then move it hundreds of miles downriver to the pyramid port. A building company in the 21st century with trucks, cranes, and satellite navigation would have a hard time with that. But it was done with sledges, ropes, and the skilled work of thousands of people, more than 4,500 years ago. It wasn't just for show that Khafre chose this rare stone. Egyptians thought that green meant renewal and endless life. It was a sign of the Nile's flood and the afterlife. A figure made from the continent's greenest and hardest rock was both a religious and a political statement. It showed that the king's power reached to the ends of the known world, and his image would last forever. A closer look at the figure makes it even more interesting. Its face is cut with mathematical symmetry, with eyes that are perfectly lined up and a jaw that is sharp. The falcon's feathers are given hair-thin grooves. Even when looked at very closely, the surface has a smooth, shiny finish that modern stone cutters know comes from hours of high-pressure grinding with materials that are much finer than regular sand. Using copper tools from the right time doesn't always produce the same clean finish, which suggests that Khafre's workshops had methods or materials that are now lost to history. Archaeologists see the statue as more than just a work of art. They see it as proof of a statewide system that worked, with guards finding the quarry, miners cutting the blocks, desert guides planning safe routes, River fleets planning their trips around the Nile floods, administrators making sure there was enough food and water, and inspectors making sure the quality was good. It shows that the kingdom planned and thought on an industrial level long before the word industry was used. And if a single sculpture could need so much power and accuracy, what would the building that held it tell us about Khafre's whole government? Khafre's stone factory, hidden in plain sight. The Valley Temple is at the base of Khafre's pyramid complex. It looks quiet now, but the stones inside it tell a story of huge ambition. Each wall is made of huge blocks of limestone and granite, some of which weigh more than 100 tons. The blocks are cut so precisely that their edges fit together without any glue. People built it 4,000 years ago, and even though there have been floods, earthquakes, and moving sand, the joints are still almost invisible. This shows that they carefully shaped and set each block, even though most people at the time were still using mud bricks. Another treat is on the floor. There are about 23 deep rectangular holes carved right into the limestone ground. They are spaced out so that it looks like they used to hold up a hall full of royal statues. Archaeologists think that each hole held a statue of Khafre sitting down, arranged in a row like a hallway of guards. This kind of display shows that the temple was more than just a place for ceremonies. It was also a place to show off mass-produced royal sculptures, which needed well-coordinated workshops and tight rules to make sure that every piece was the same. There are still signs of these schools around. On one wall, there are pieces of figures that were started but not finished. They have parallel abrasions and spiral polishing lines on their surfaces. These are the marks of stoneworkers from long ago who knew how to use special abrasives and water-based slurry to smooth granite and gneiss. There is proof that teams of sculptors worked together on identical pieces like a production line hundreds of years before factories were built. The tools that left these tracks were made to be fast and consistent. The fact that the figures that were saved all have the same finish tells the same story. Eagle wings, eyes, and the crown all have the same level of shine and cut angle. In order to get that level of accuracy in dozens of different workshops, quality control rules had to be strictly followed. Foremen had to check each step of the process before a statue could be accepted for the temple. This wasn't craft made by trial and error. It was organized, repeatable output overseen from one place. Why does this level of skill appear during Khafre's rule, reach its highest point in the Valley Temple, and then drop off almost right after he died? This puzzles historians. It was never again possible for later pharaohs to achieve the same mix of high-quality sculpting, mass production, and megalithic building. It's not true that technology grows slowly over hundreds of years, as most people think. Instead, it looks like a sudden burst of industrial age efficiency that happened in the middle of the Bronze Age and then went away, as if the plan had been lost. Khafre's Egypt did more than just move big stones, as shown by the Valley Temple. It also managed supply lines, trained specialists, and enforced uniform standards on a scale that seems strangely modern. The walls are still there, like a fossilized factory floor made of stone. They are a warning that whole bodies of knowledge can appear out of nowhere and disappear without leaving any instructions. But the most shocking proof of that long-gone system is not in the temple itself, but in the Nubian desert, where the green-black stone was found, and where Khafre's true power can be seen. Secrets of the Desert Quarry. It took researchers following the path of the stone to figure out how Khafre's builders carved the glowing green statue in the Valley Temple. Far south of Giza, that path came to an end at Gebel El Asr, a rocky spine in the middle of the Nubian desert. The place doesn't look like it would have life. The sun heats the sand, to 120 degrees Fahrenheit during the day, and it gets very cold at night. The sky is made up of endless dunes and sharp black rocks. Without notice, sandstorms can cover the sky, and scorpions and horned vipers live in the ground, which makes even camping unsafe. Still, the marks of an old workforce can be found all over this dangerous land. There are blocks of half-shaped anorthosite gneiss in the sand that are buried halfway. The ends of these blocks are still sharp after thousands of years. Some are carved with very straight lines, as if they were already formed to go somewhere hundreds of miles away. Archaeologists found nearby long stone ramps with deep, exactly parallel grooves cut into them. Egyptian tomb paintings show flat sled tracks, but these aren't those. The grooves are long, narrow, and straight, with a steady slope, as if they were made for some kind of rolling or sliding rig we don't understand. The fact that pieces of pottery are marked with Khafre's royal cartouche shows that this was not a later invasion. Stone-lined storage pits were used to hold dried grain, salted meat, and clay water jars. These pits are still there today. This setup shows a planned supply network that kept a lot of workers living in a place without a natural spring. Archaeologists even found wells lined with stones that were cut to exact depths so that they hit seasonal groundwater without collapsing. This shows that people in the Bronze Age knew a lot about water flow, but not many of them were good at it. More hints showed that the quarry wasn't just a short trip, but an industrial camp that would last for a long time. Teams lived here for months at a time, as shown by the ruins of low stone houses. Grave goods and amulets were found near the camp, showing that priests were brought from the Nile to perform full funeral rites for workers who died on the job. In the middle of nowhere, there was a colony that was running with the help of supply caravans, riverboats, and managers who knew their way around the desert. Even the tools are new and different. Archaeologists found copper chisels and blades with thicker spines and curved edges that were made to cut through the glass-hard gneiss. Copper chisels in museums usually have these forms, but these ones look like they were custom-made for this quarry. This suggests that metalworking has come a long way just to meet Khafre's need for rare stones. Those groove-cut ramps are still the most puzzling piece of proof. They go for miles through a desert, going up and down in smooth, well-planned slopes, and even having drainage canals built in to redirect rainwater during the rainy season. The accuracy with which they were built makes me think of measuring tools and high-quality standards. Historians wonder if Khafre's engineers used a completely different way to move things, one that was so efficient that only the cut lanes were left behind, instead of the hundreds of haulers that are usually seen pulling sleds. Altogether, the quarry site shows that Khafre's plan wasn't just a show of force. It was a mix of environmental knowledge, modular staging yards, water logistics, specialized tools, and maybe even technologies that went away with his rule. It changes the picture of slaves dragging stones across endless sand to something more like a well-organized field operation powered by science that we didn't think existed yet. The Pharaoh who timed the floods. There was water in parts of the Sahara long before it turned into the harsh desert we know today. During Khafre's time, short periods of rain made shallow lakes and temporary river routes called wadis. These only came to life when the Nile flooded every year. The Wadi Tushka Basin was one of these that filled up for only a few weeks when floods moved north and into the desert valleys. Khafre's managers knew about these short windows of opportunity and planned their logistics around them. Blocks quarried from the Nubian outcrops had to be cut and stored for months before they could be used. They had to wait for the right time of year, when the water level rose enough to float heavy goods. The plan called for timing work at a mine far away with the rise and fall of the Nile, which was hundreds of miles away. To do that, they had to guess when the floods would happen, figure out how far they would go into the desert wadis, and place the barges, ramps, and work teams so that each stage fit together perfectly. Archaeological proof of wells with stone walls found along the caravan routes shows how well they planned their use of the environment. It was planned that each well would be dug to a depth that would reach a thin layer of groundwater below the sand. The depth had to be just right for reliability, but not so deep that the shaft walls would fall. Set up in a chain, the wells were put at regular intervals to save the lives of water-hauling teams and animals moving supplies between the quarry and the river. The way they were built shows that they had a much better understanding of hydrology and land stability than the Fourth Dynasty is known for. The whole thing went like a seasonal relay run. Quarries shaped the gneiss blocks, and transport teams slid them down grooved ramps to barges waiting on the temporary lakes in the desert. The barges were then guided into the Nile's swollen current for the long trip north to Giza. Along the river, the blocks were unloaded at specially built ports and quickly brought up to the Valley Temple yards. At each stage, the work, food supplies, animals, and tools had to be carefully coordinated based on calendars that showed when the river would rise and fall. Studies of the climate show that this good pattern of desert lakes and backflowing wadis went away within 100 years of Khafre's rule. Later kingdoms had to deal with a harsher, drier landscape that didn't have the natural waterways that had been used as secret roads for moving stones. Since those yearly floods stopped happening, no other pharaoh after Khafre did any more quarrying this far away on the same scale. If Khafre was able to connect rivers, wells in the desert, and quarry ramps into a single supply chain, what other planning secrets and secret tunnels might still be hidden closer to home? Maybe they're hidden under the Sphinx's silent shadow. The Forbidden Blueprint. As a silent guardian, the great Sphinx of Giza has always watched over the hill. It was carved from a single limestone ridge that used to meet Khafre's pyramid. A lot of experts say that the monument's face looks a lot like Khafre's. This makes it a huge portrait of the pharaoh guarding his own tomb. But what worries many experts isn't the Sphinx's worn-down face, but what could be hiding under its paws. Whispers go back almost 200 years. Colonel Howard Vyse, a British officer, found signs of a locked door hidden in the Sphinx's chest in 1837 while digging on the plateau. Accounts from that time say that there was a narrow passageway that went down, but it was quickly sealed up again, and there were rumors that official papers were later hidden. The story made people think that the Sphinx wasn't a real monument, but it's still not clear if those tales were wrong, exaggerated, or put out there on purpose. That curiosity has grown with the help of modern technology. Ground-penetrating radar and acoustic echo mapping have been used to find strange voids and echo patterns below the statue and in areas of the plateau around it. So far, the scans only show empty spaces where solid bedrock should be. They can't show walls or passageways yet. Some experts think that these strange features are tunnels and chambers that connect the Sphinx to Khafre's pyramid and the Valley Temple. This suggests that the whole complex was built as one connected system for ceremonies and transportation. Most Egyptologists disagree and say that the readings could be caused by natural cracks or old quarry cuts that were covered by moving sand. Even though no excavation has proven the existence of man-made tunnels, the argument continues because it is hard to ignore the radar data. What scares experts the most is what will happen if the tunnels are real. To make safe tunnels under Giza's loose, sandy base, people would have had to know a lot more than the Bronze Age about soil pressure, water seepage, and bracing structures. The pyramids, the Sphinx, and temples would not have been built separately over many years. Instead, they would have been the visible parts of a larger plan for the area to work as a single, unified whole. The tension has grown with the 2025 SCIDEP Muon radiography project, which is looking for secret holes in Khafre's pyramid. Unlike radar, muon imaging can show the shapes of holes inside huge stone buildings. This gives people hope that any connecting passages or chambers can finally be mapped without having to dig them up. Even if it's not true, the idea forces Egyptologists to think of Khafre not only as the builder of pyramids, but also as the designer of a whole semi-underground ritual plan. This changes how the most famous buildings in Giza are understood. History still hides more secrets under the sands of Giza. If you enjoyed this journey, like, share, and subscribe, and don't miss the next video now popping up on your screen.